And we are supposedly live. Hi, Troy. Hi, Luke, Patricia, Miss Pagan, Vane. Who else? I think I saw someone else in the beginning. No, I was just imagining things. Let me know if you can hear and see us, or you can hear me anyway. And if you can see us, will be good. And Necrokitty is in the house. Awesome. I don't know what scared Necrokitty, but I can see 6 people on there now. So I'm going to assume that you guys can hear and see us if you don't tell me otherwise. So Shell, yes, thank you, Mita. And Luke, awesome, great. Okay, so I'm not going to talk a lot today. I am having my little guest with me here today, all the way from Peru. And she wanted to talk a little bit about the numbers, what's actually going on, what the government is doing, how people can survive during the quarantine or not, what's actually going on behind the scenes. So I don't know a lot about what she's going to talk about, so it will be a surprise to me as well. So I'm going to let Thora introduce herself and let me know what we're actually going to talk about. And if you have questions, just put them up there and I will ask them. Okay. Hey, Thora. Welcome.
Thora. Hello.
Welcome.
This is Thora from Peru. I'm actually a Canadian who's been traveling for several years, and this is where I happen to be in a small little beach town in northern Peru when this quarantine hit. And so I just kind of thought I'd give my perspective on what's happening down here, partly from an expat point of view and partly from somebody who pays attention to, I actually notice that there's poor people in the world, which is kind of not everyone's perspective.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Anyway, so we went into quarantine here about 5 weeks ago. I believe it was 5 weeks ago. Yeah, we go, and we were given, I think, 36 hours notice. So anyone who was wanting to leave only had 36 hours notice, which was pretty tough. There's at least several hundred expats kind of traveling that have gotten stuck in Peru, and I'm not sure about some Americans, but I had heard about some Canadians who got stuck in the airport and I think they're still there. I'm not 100% certain. But for example, I'm from Canada, and the Canadian embassy quit talking to expats 2 months ago. So we kind of get stuck down here. Wow. I didn't really have any desire to go back to Canada. So I didn't really worry about it. So I'm fine where I'm at. I've got a little apartment in a semi-secure place. I mean, it's not like secure like a walled-in, gated community, but it's a property with several apartment buildings, small apartment buildings and families. So it's relatively secure. Anyways, so
have
with Peru, they have a lot of...
Have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Troy is asking what town you are in.
Troy is asking what town you are in.
Wife is from Pura.
Wife is from Pura. Okay, I'm really close to Pura. I'm in Naimkara.
There you go.
There you go. So I guess in English it would be pronounced Mankora. So yeah, that's really close to where I'm at.
Okay.
Kind of lost my train of thought. Anyway, so we were given.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Totally fine. Totally fine. I'm not really used to doing on video, but that's okay.
Fine.
So they gave us 36 hours notice and to quarantine, and they don't have a very good medical system here. I mean, it's maybe better than some, but it's just maybe not quite a third world country, but just barely above that. And so they were kind of struggling to get their hospital system up to snuff to be able to handle COVID at all. And their estimated ridiculous numbers, which they're ridiculously high, like everywhere else where they said they were going to be. So they've thrown a ton of money at that, getting equipment, setting up places throughout the country, but they shut down all business except for the food market, the banks, and the pharmacies. Everything else is closed. The hospitals are still open, and the medical clinics, the government medical clinics. But everything else is closed, and there's a ton of people here who, they live day to day. They're not living on even paycheck to paycheck. They live, they may earn the money today to eat today.
Yeah.
So they had compiled, they'd made a plan to give people the equivalent of about $120 for the first 2 weeks, because we went into quarantine for 2 weeks to start with. So they were going to have this $120 to give to the poor that they had registered. And they have, let me see my numbers, 3.5 million registered poor. Maybe that's not the official number that they use, but that's what they are. So we're in week 5 now, and it took them till this week to get the money to about 80% of the people, and even 20% of those were just like the week before. So all those people went a huge number of those people went a whole month with nothing, not one penny. They can't earn money. They can't. I mean, and those are the poorest of the poor. I mean, there's probably going to be plenty others that aren't technically in that 3.5 million, which is about 10% of the population, that are also going to be struggling because nobody's working, or very few people are working.
Yeah.
And so even today, the latest report I had was from 2 days ago. They didn't have one yesterday, and they haven't listened if there's one today. They still had 500,000 people who hadn't received even that $120, and it's 5 weeks in.
Wow.
So, I mean, to me, that is just horrible. That just blows my mind that it's that many people, and that's just the official ones. Who knows about? Actually, that's more. There's more than that. There's 800,000 people who haven't received anything yet. Out of those people, that's just wrong. And they've started giving they're giving another $120 or so. That was for the second week, the second batch of 2 weeks, like week 3 and week 4. And they were supposed to start giving those out yesterday. So we're into 5 weeks, and they're still only just starting to give out the second $120.
So do you know any people who are supposed to receive that money that you've spoken to personally, that live where you live, and how do they actually go by? How do they survive when they haven't had that money, if they live day by day, basically?
I know there's one lady in this building who is getting it, or in this property, but she's with her family. Her family is okay. There's like 12 or 14 adults who all have various levels of income and savings. So if she's running out of money, it's not an issue. Right? She happens to have family. Nobody else in this building or in this compound complex will be collecting that. Everyone else was either working or had a business or a job or something.
Okay.
So, I know that there's certainly people I saw in the town that will have been affected because everyone's locked down. You can't see it. It's so hard to see. These people are like out of sight, out of mind. Like I did try to talk to, there's a couple ladies in here who speak English, and I tried to talk to them a little bit about it, but they don't want to know. They just want to stick to themselves and not learn. They'll just take direction from their men, and it's kind of weird because they're not like that. They just, when this happened, they just reverted kind of back to that. So I don't get any answers from them. I've tried to talk to them, and there's like one man in the whole property who will answer questions, but of course he's not around every minute. So, you can sort of only guess a little bit. And there's a little bit on social media, but with everything that's going on social media, it's like 10 minutes of this and 10 minutes of that. And I haven't followed it like completely. Certainly see that there's some particular areas, especially down in Lima, Lima is like the capital or the biggest city in the country. Certainly more problems down there, and because they have a lot of the poor, not all of them, will be in that city. Like big cities always have a higher percentage of the poor because that's just what they're less poor if they're in the country because they can grow food and raise animals and have communities. In the city, it's a little bit different. And Lima's got a section of the city that's extremely dangerous. You're not going there. And of course, they're going to be probably worse off because they don't. It's not like they can go, go fishing or anything like that to get food. They have to rely on whatever they can buy, and if they don't have any money, they're not buying anything. They have when they put in the quarantine, I did actually check the law, what it meant and everything. It flat out said all civil rights are canceled during they put it in for 90 days. So state of emergency, state of medical emergency. All civil rights have been canceled in the country. That went along with that. That wasn't something they put in after. It went right along with it right that minute. So that's pretty sad, All rights that people even had are like gone.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, it wasn't just medical stuff. Some of the other countries I've seen, they have limited civil rights reductions. Here it was all of it. And the military has more of a presence here anyways, but just because some of their policing is done with the military rather than police. They have police too, but the military is more involved in policing here than in some countries, and they're everywhere now. Like we had I don't think there was any military here before this started, but now there's, several dozen military, and they're around everywhere where there's anything open. This is a small town, so the area that's open with stores is only a few blocks. So they're everywhere, and they're enforcing their rules. They put in some rules for people who broke curfew, because they put a time limit on. The original one, I think, was curfew from 8 p.m. till 5 a.m. It's a little bit longer now. I think it's 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. or something like that.
Wow.
But they were people who broke that curfew, and within the first, I think, 4 weeks, they had arrested 51,000 people had been arrested. And we, at that point, I think there was less than 1,000. I can't remember what are the deaths at right now? I can't remember. I'll have to look that up.
That's right.
But it was like a couple hundred or 100, but 51,000 people arrested. So 51,000 people have just had their lives destroyed, and everyone who's connected to them. And I think that's just totally wrong and then they started talking about what sentences they're going to give these people, and they're going to get from 6 months to 2 years in prison for that. So think of how many 51,000 people are going to be in the Peruvian jail for 6 months to 2 years from
for
all
breaking the curfew.
Fallout from having a family
for breaking the curfew.
For breaking a curfew.
Wow.
And of course, just like other places, people are getting very vocal about calling them down, insulting them, telling them, they're going to kill everyone. And so And then anyone who's just a tiny bit different, whether it's like there's a big break now between South Peruvian people and Northern Peruvian people. It's like, they're blaming that area for the bad stuff. So all those people in that area are bad and, trying to affect everyone. And then, of course, we have a lot of Venezuelans. There's, I think, about 3 or 4 million, something like that, even over a year ago, had left Venezuela. Venezuela's got a terrible dictatorship in right now, and I think things are a disaster. So a lot of these people have spread out through other countries in South America. So now all the Venezuelans are sort of being tackled or attacked for, oh, they're the, like the racism is just reared its head that didn't really exist, at least not quite as out in your face. And then Ecuador is kind of a mess. So anyone from Ecuador, they're kind of being attacked too, like, oh, those dirty Ecuadorians. It's so sad to see that divide, that people are like throwing the blame on somebody, right?
Mm.
So that's making that's going to make their lives a lot tougher, and just really saddens me to see people so attacking each other. Like, yeah, it's very sad.
Just a question for you.
Just a question for you.
There are a lot of homeless people around there, and do you know what they're going to do? Because, where do you hide if you are homeless?
Yeah, there isn't in this particular town. It's small enough that even a small, poor church could probably get people accommodations. In other areas, up in closer to the border in Piura and Tumbas and areas, there are some people, because they're actually getting people from Venezuela and Ecuador coming in. They're trying to escape, and they're not escaping the virus. They're escaping, Venezuelans are escaping their government, and Ecuadorians are escaping the military, which is worse up there. They got a disaster going on in Guayaquil. Like, the administration has just completely fallen apart. So they're running away from the military, but they don't really have anywhere to stay. So I imagine they're going to, if they find out that there's people in some of those areas, they're probably arresting them if they can find them. I don't know what they're doing in Lima. There will be people in Lima who are going to be homeless. So I don't know what they're doing there. So.
God, that is so heartbreaking. It's crazy how you can arrest so many people for 6 months to 2 years for such a thing, and just for being outside when they only had 100 deaths or whatever. I can't understand it.
Right, and a lot of them, some of them are going to be outside because they're trying to figure out how to earn a couple bucks to get some food. And you don't take all people's money away and their tiny bit of job and just expect them to sit at home and do nothing.
Mm.
Yeah, of course there's going to be people who don't care and they want to just party. Of course there's going to be some of that, but not 51,000 of them. And they haven't reported, the first 3 weeks, they were really excited about reporting those numbers every day. Like, you just really became so excited that they'd arrested all these people. And then they kind of stopped doing that. And I think they were probably getting some flack from people because that's a lot of people to arrest compared to the number of deaths. Leading up to that, there was like 30 and 40 deaths, and they had arrested like 30,000 people. So it was like so out of scale. And I think they're still arresting them. They're just not reporting the numbers quite so much anymore.
Right.
Like in the last week and a half, they've only reported 800 more arrests. But that doesn't mean that they aren't still happening. They're just not telling everyone. I think they're probably were getting some flack, which they will be, they'll be getting flack. It was really quite interesting on YouTube the first 2 weeks, because I'm following these daily reports, and I'd read through the comments, and people are like, well, this kind of sucks, but whatever. Then the day that he announced the there was a big time when he'd announced arrests, had announced that he wasn't going to be getting around to getting the money to the poor yet. And he announced the extension to 2 more weeks. And the comments totally changed that day. People were mad. It was like 90% or 80% of the people were actually quite angry. I went back to that same video a few hours later to kind of release into one section. They cleaned them all. All those comments were gone. And then going forward, that channel or that report was sanitized as you went through. Like even if you were looking at the live chat, you'd read a comment that would be, angry about something, and it would last about 15 seconds and it was gone. And all it was, oh, quarantine's wonderful, and let's all band together and stay safe and stay at home. And so they've been sanitizing. I mean, it's just weird watching comments disappear. Like instantly, like in live chat. I'm not really one for following live chat stuff, but just to see them disappear was very strange. And then to see the regular comments, not the ones that aren't live, totally change within minutes. Just all these people are being silenced, like a bunch of other channels too. But I mean, this isn't like some conspiracy theorist person who's got angry people, talking about something weird. This is like regular people are saying, I haven't had any money in a month and I'm out of money and I'm hungry. And they're just deleting them. And so a lot of people, they'll come in and read the comments and think, most people look like they're okay with this whole thing. That's not true. I think it falls in that out of sight, out of mind kind of attitude where if you don't see it, it can't be happening.
So I'm wondering, what do you think? Is there a solution to how we could have, or Peru could have dealt with this differently, or what can we do right now? Is there anything that can be done, or what do you think?
Well, I personally think people should just stop being quarantined and go back to work. Is that going to happen? No, but that's what should happen. If the medical system needs fixing, which it probably did in most countries on the planet, even developed countries, there'll be towns or cities that maybe don't have enough, facilities to deal with a quarantine type situation. Well, instead of shutting down the world and giving $2 trillion in the U.S., giving $2 trillion to the airlines, why didn't you put, a bunch of money into the hospitals? You could have had them upgraded in a few days. I mean, really, you see them put in those emergency medical units, the tent ones. I mean, they're up in a day. Yeah. The military knows how to build mobile medical units. They've been doing it ever since they decided to go to war. They know how to do that. That time-wise would have been quick. But to shut it all down and ignore and let the poor people keep working. And if there was some at-risk people, like let's say it's probably a tiny percentage of the population, but let's say it was 5%. Well, then put some resources to those 5% as fast as you want. It could even be something as simple as a educational campaign. It could be a bit more. I wouldn't choose to be a bit more aggressive, but maybe it is a bit more aggressive where you say everyone with a serious health condition, you're going to stay home, or we're going to be forced to help you look after yourself or give you more information or something. Could have kept the economy going in all countries. But that's not what happened. We'll have to see what happens. I don't know how many countries have actually unquarantined now. I don't think it's very many. It's just a few. And I haven't heard any reports of those, but the sooner people can get back to work, the sooner the side fallout will stop. Yeah. It won't get any worse anyways. So
And do you know how long this lockdown is? Do they have an end date to it, or a plan of changing the restrictions, or anything that you know about at all?
Yeah, they talked about April 26th will be the last day of this, but they could change their mind at any moment. But the last time I watched his videos, the last two times, he has spoken about phase 1, 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 is what we're in now, which will go until they lift the quarantine. Phase 2 will last until 2021. So we'll have some sort of restrictions for the rest of 2020. And then phase 3 would be fully back to work and so-called all the restrictions taken off. That's so far away, and they change their mind all the time. Who knows? And we have no idea what that means. What does phase 2 mean? They say and he's been talking a lot about we have to slowly go back to normal. Well, how slow is slow, and how long is that going to take which is mostly getting people back to work. That's what that, really what that means. Stop quarantine, allowing people to go back to work. Are they going to let that take 8 months to get back to normal, or is it going to be a month? I don't know. I would suspect it's going to be the rest of the year before they get people back to normal. And I mean, that's just going to be, even depending on what industries they allow back, will depend on how bad that is. Because they're going to run it. I mean, they got lots of money. I guess Peru is more rich than some countries and is able to get more credit, which they've already taken some credit. I don't know, I'm not much details about it, but they've taken some international loans. But I mean, they've been spending money like it's going out of style. And if they are going to keep everyone unemployed or if they're going to keep huge portions of the population unemployed for months, this money is just going to keep going out. At some point, you have to put the money back. Is it going to be because you don't have any internal money anymore, or are you going to have billions or trillions of dollars in debt to the IMF or some other international funding? If you've got international loans, they're going to want their money back. Well, if you don't have any people working, how are you going to give them their money? And, from some of the historical things that have happened in South America, some of these international banks and the IMF have come in and taken over industries in the country, taken over their electricity, taken over water, taken over like a lot of the infrastructure. Some countries have not allowed it, but a lot of them have. So they end up losing their independence. And I haven't dug a lot into that, but it is a historical thing that happened where they've taken over some of the core things that a country has, water or industry, or not oil. They haven't been able to take over oil completely, but and there have been times when the people have rioted. There was somewhere, I think it was Brazil, where one of the international banks, might have been the IMF, I'm not sure, they didn't pay their loans, so the agreement was, okay, if you don't pay your loan, we'll take your water. So they actually took over. They didn't do a bunch of paperwork and a bunch of meetings. It's like they walked in and said, the water is ours. So overnight they walked in and did that, took over, increased the rate on water 500% overnight, and made it illegal to collect rainwater. And they enforced it the next day. It was total chaos. I mean, this was at the time, this was a poor country, and people were major dire problems, and they actually rioted and threw them out, and they physically threw them out of the country. But so that one is one that I'd heard of, and I hate to see that kind of thing happen, because then if you don't even own your own electricity anymore, you can't control it, can't control the pricing, you can't raise it or lower it or whatever. Somebody else controls it, you lose control of your country bit by bit. And I really would hate to see that happen. And if these countries take up too many of those loans and can't pay them back, a lot of times those are the kind of agreements that they have. And politicians, I don't think, understand the repercussions. how many
But
politicians actually read these kind of agreements.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Yeah,
wondering. You say that they don't understand it. I'm wondering if they do understand it and they just choose to ignore it because it's uncomfortable and it would make it harder for them to make a decision that kind of follows the global guidelines, if you like.
the global guidelines, if you like.
Yeah, I would actually think that's probably closer to the truth. And maybe a couple people understand it, but the average, even just some of the regular politicians, they may not understand what it really means. So they take their advice. Well, this other politician said it's okay, and oh, they did that here and here and here, and it worked out good. Okay, well, I'll go along with that. And then maybe some of the ones who agree to it and understand it, they get power or ruling out of that deal too. I mean, the regular people of the country might have lost some power, some rights, but the politicians probably don't. They get a job, they get, get to wine and dine with the other rich, the people who are taking over. I don't really understand the motivation of some of it, but that is kind of what it certainly can come out of that. But it's definitely not good for this. If they can't pay, they lose part of their country somehow, whatever the agreement is, whether it's land or mineral rights or power or water or something. They lose, and the regular person the regular person doesn't even know that stuff in the United States, let alone in Peru or Ecuador or any of these places. Just like everywhere else, they sort of just let the politicians run their stuff the way they want to run it and don't understand the repercussions of all of it.
Sorry, I think I lost you there at the end.
I lost you there at the end.
Okay.
Kind of.
No, I quit talking. So.
Yeah, but I think I lost you.
I think I lost you a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just saying that I don't think, just like the Canada or the States or anywhere else, the politicians run stuff and the regular people, they don't understand the repercussions of the actions of the government, good or bad. I mean, you can have good government, you can have bad government. They don't understand either way, so they can't even tell the difference between what's good or bad, or good for them or bad for them, or maybe it's good for some people but not others.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Sorry, go on.
It shocked me is a lot of these countries in South America are not very long. They're only, small, like there are still people alive, lots of people alive who have dictators. And these people have forgotten that. They've forgotten the actions that make a dictator are some of these things that are happening. Like, you're not allowed to go to work, go home. You're going to sit there. That to me kind of sounds like a dictator to me.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
Some of the fines that they have some fines in the daytime now. If you don't wear your mask and a couple of small things like that, you're going to get a fine. And if you don't pay the fine, you can't use your bank. So you're forced to pay the fine, or you literally could not use any banking institution in that whole country. So they have control over the banks, all of them. I mean, they don't own all the banks. There are some private banks, but they have the authority to say, no, you're not getting your money. That's kind of scary. I mean, like,
yes.
And if you did have some money and it's in the bank and you did something dumb during the day, it might even be like, because I think there's a rule about you have to be 6 feet away, or no, it's less than that, 1 meter away from people. I mean, in some cities, if they're being aggressive, they're going to really enforce that. Maybe they're going to be out with a ruler, and because I know they're going to have places where you got angrier military than other towns. Like here, when I went to the market today, they're just like, I don't care. I mean, today they were being pretty lenient with people, but it's not going to be like that in every town.
No.
This is like a really small town, and I don't think there's much going on. There's like 10,000 people here max, so it's quiet. And But that's not going to be everywhere. So,
Wow.
did you have any other questions or?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. I don't know if you actually know the answer to this question, but since there are a lot of poor people and they haven't had the money, have you heard anything about people actually, starving to death, fleeing the country, trying other things, crazy things that will get them arrested, or that sort of thing that is going on behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes?
No, we don't have any details on why people are being arrested. They have the authority to kind of arrest, and they just call everyone a bad person who broke the curfew. So there's no details at all. We would never get those kind of details here. You would literally have to get that information from the actual physical people who go through these things. There's like no reporting system or court reporting, or, the human rights advocates here, they're working on a grand scale still. They're not down into the, they have so many giant problems. They haven't gotten down to the little tiny ones yet.
Yeah.
And as far as fleeing, there's nowhere to go. I think there's one country in South America that doesn't have a quarantine. I think it's Paraguay.
Okay.
But that is the other side. That's the Atlantic. I'm on the Pacific Ocean, and that's on the Atlantic, I think.
Yeah.
It's that direction.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds of miles before you get to that part. It's like part of that section of South America with almost nobody in it. That includes the Amazon and the jungle and stuff. And mountains and mountains and mountains, and it's going to take you 6 months to walk there if you walk there. I mean,
might be worth it.
So
Might be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, for some people they might be doing that. If they're already in that area. But there are some locked-in communities that still have never hardly touched the Western world, even in not even their own government. They have it's not their people. They've stayed separate, and they're still staying separate because they did talk about them. They talked about them and they classify them as some of the poor, but it's because they have closed communities and they don't let the outsiders in ever, including the Peruvian government. So they're probably not maybe they're worried about the outsiders, but they're probably not worried in the same way that I would be worried about being locked up, or a poor person would be worried about not having food. Their worries are going to be unique because they've got a different culture. And nobody's going to Ecuador because it's a disaster. Guayaquil, which is one of the big cities in Ecuador, the mayor was an idiot. It was incompetent. Couldn't even do some basic stuff when this thing hit. Had some ridiculous rules for some of the hospitals. Closed some retarded businesses and roads. So very quickly it got very chaotic. Then she had some international incident where they'd agreed to let, I think, Spain or Italy come in and pick up some of their Spanish or Italian people and take them back to Europe. And they'd made this agreement. They were flying over the city, and she said, "You're not allowed in." They had to go land in some other country in the middle of all international flights being canceled. So I mean, they're lucky they actually found a country that would let them land. So they had to go back home without their Italian or Spanish. So she then they threw her out, put in the military. Well, the military doesn't know how to. I mean, maybe they can keep law and order, kind of, sort of. They can scare people to do stuff, but they don't know how to run a city. And I'm not sure if the city closed the funeral homes or the funeral home people were scared and closed their businesses. I'm not sure which happened. But either way, 90% of the morgues, not the morgue, the funeral homes closed, who normally would deal with the dead who are not in a hospital. You wouldn't call the ambulance, you would call the funeral home, and they would come pick up your person and take them there and deal with them in the burial and stuff. Well, I mean, even regular people are dying normally. It's a big city, and I think they had, I can't remember the numbers, but they closed 90% of them. So then, and now the poor people, they have normal people dying in their families and nowhere to put them. And there was this big scandal because they were having to put them out on the street, in boxes, coffins. you can't leave them in the house, and that happened for like a month. So nobody wants to be going to Ecuador, because that's the big city that's close to this section of Peru, and then Chile. I'm not sure all that's going on in Chile, but Chile was, before this happened, they were having a lot of rioting and stuff because they're really angry at their government for whatever reason. So when they did their lockdown, they went real hard militarily. So nobody wants to go there. It's worse than here. Brazil, again, the same thing. It borders. It's in this area with nothing for hundreds and hundreds of miles. Argentina, not sure what's going on in Argentina. And I don't know. And let's see, there's another one in there. What's in the middle? Bolivia, is it Bolivia? Bolivia is quite poor. So even though it might not, haven't heard what it's doing militarily, but it's one of the poorer countries in South America. So it's probably not a better place to be. So down here, I don't think there's anywhere to go that's better.
Okay, let's see.
In Canada and the States, you could, if you could get to.
We have. Sorry. Go on. There's a delay between.
If you were in Canada,
there's a delay between you and me.
Yeah, if you were in Canada or the States, you could go to a different province or a different state. You know, based on what your preferences are. Down here, it's just there isn't really that option. Oh, that's another thing they did here. They closed all the interior transportation. So you can't move from town to town. The only thing allowed to move is military and food transport trucks. Everything else is shut down. Like you can't even go like 5 miles. There's a little town that's like 5 miles away. They're not allowed to go between towns. So the people who work here but live there had to move here during this whole thing.
That is, that sounds very strange to me, especially if you work there, because I assume that they're both small towns, so it wouldn't necessarily be a big problem. But there you go. There you go.
Yeah, they're both small towns. They make it sound, and of course the media, like there, you know, like the States or Canada, they make it sound like, you know, the worst plague in the history of the earth. You know, so everyone's scared to death. Like this little hand washing station at the front, and you got to wash your shoes when you come in, and you have to wear a mask. I mean, but some of them are wearing masks with their family. Like, what are you doing? Like, oh, you know, it's crazy.
Okay, so good folks. If you have any specific questions for Thora, just throw them in now. I know there have been some comments. Have put them up on the screen. Haven't read them today necessarily. Fapnado says that Tristan talked about the unimaginable mind-blowing incompetence and low intelligence of the Ecuadorian government and city workers. And yeah, seems like it with the closing funeral homes, etc. Seems to be the worst country in South America. And yeah, I have a lot of relatives there that I don't actually know, but you know, it's still sharing some genes with those people.
And there's like I had lived in Ecuador. I've been there several times, and so I have like a community of people that used to be my community until all this blew up and they all turned into lunatics. But that's just my opinion. They're all like, you know, all for this quarantine, let's stay home, and they're just clueless about the poor, even within their own city. And they're not in Guayaquil or Quito. They're in another fairly big city. But they're just not seeing that the actions of the government there are dictatorial, because they went like instantly right back to being a dictatorship. They're one of the ones who weren't who did have some dictatorship not that long ago. And they had a recent president who was pro half the country, but anti the other half of the country. So there's a big split politically. So there's still this turmoil and huge corruption, which it's kind of a thing in South America, and they have, you know, different degrees of it. But the main reason it is still here is it's not punished. You don't, you know, maybe you'll get unelected, but you know they have control over the elections, and people are getting elected in places that nobody's electing them, but they get elected anyway. It's just, you know, and so much money in being corrupt. You just, and it's open. It's not like Canada, the States, where the only way they can be corrupt is if they put in some weird law that allows them to be legally corrupt. It's much more open down here.
Yeah.
And these people who are from the States, it's like they moved down here, but they don't realize some of the history. Like, I'm not a history expert or anything, but you know, before I came down here, I do some basic stuff to kind of know a little bit about the country beyond the tourist attractions. And a lot of them, they don't see that what's happening is it's a dictator who's gone crazy. But 2 days ago there were some older people. They put in a rule about old people are not supposed to go out anymore. They're supposed to get, and I guess if they have this and this and this wrong with them, they're not allowed out. So now it's starting to touch those expats, because most of these are retired people in their 70s or 80s. And, you know, they're not all going to be super healthy at that age. I mean, you get rickety, and you get old, and you got lung problems and joint problems and all this stuff. Well, they're starting to feel it. And they're not, even on that, there was like one person on that thread on the Facebook group that kind of picked up that, oh, this is not a good thing. It's like, no kidding, it's not a good thing. So you know, and they're getting, just like here, they get new rules every day. And some of them are just stupid. And who came up with this rule? Who thought this was a good idea? It's like, you know, you're not going to let old people out? Well, you're going to, like, what if they live alone? What if they don't have 10 family members? And sure, there's going to be lots of Ecuadorians who live in communal homes. That's pretty common here, but not everyone's like that, you know. And there are some helper people, but the helper people are going to run out eventually because they're going to be helping too many people.
Yeah.
You have to help all the old people in the expat community in that town. It's like 400 people who need help now. If everyone over 65 is not allowed out, I mean, it's not gotten that far, but you know, the rules are such that it's affecting about 30% of that group of people, and that's just this week's rules. So, I definitely don't want to be in Ecuador. It's going to get bad. And any of these countries that keep getting worse won't get better until somebody pushes back, or other countries, other power countries, back off a little bit. Like, I'm crossing my fingers that when the U.S., it's starting to back off just a tiny bit, but because if it does that and things don't fall apart, then it might spur some other countries on to do the same thing.
Yes.
Crossing my fingers, because some of these countries aren't going to stop until somebody else does. Like a big country.
So I got a question for you from Shell, and she's wondering if you are safe for now.
Safe for now.
I am. I still have my job. I thought first week or so, like, I wasn't able to get money because they closed. I need a certain teller at a certain bank, and that person lived in the neighboring town. That's how I found out about that. But they got him here like a few days later. So now I can get money, and I have a job. I'm in a building. I'm on the second floor, and I don't face the street. I'm not on the street. It's a single property that's probably 2 acres, but it's in town. So there's like a whole bunch of, I think there's 8 family homes in here, and 2 little small 3-story apartment buildings. So I'm in one of the apartment buildings. So, and everything's gated here. I mean, everybody's gated here, and I have just a teeny little home. So safety-wise, I'm much better off than some. I mean, I'm not in a fancy condo or anything like that. It's just a cute little, 600 square foot apartment. But, and there is the whole family here. They might be kind of scared of me because they're scared of everything right now. But they're not going to throw me out or anything like that. And so, you know, and they're there, they'll be protecting themselves as well if everything gets 50 times worse, which so far this town is quiet. So even though I'm getting in my head about this whole stuff 24 hours a day, this town is actually kind of quiet. So I'm okay if you hear it. Like, I'm better off than some of the expats who got stuck in the airport or really truly were traveling. I mean, I was here in an apartment. I had intentions to stay till June, so I'll just, the minute I actually want to go to Mexico. So the minute I can get into Mexico, I go to Mexico. I had lived there before, so there's kind of a community of people, like-minded people there, and I realized I need to be there. Plus, right now Mexico is very mild on everything they're doing. Even just a few days ago, the airport was still open. They're still accepting international flights. They're not being too aggressive with they don't have quarantine or anything. They closed some big businesses. They have some, you know, little sporadic temperature checks on the highway and stuff, but nothing. People are still going about their business there, so it's a good place for me.
Yeah.
So as soon as I can get there,
Yeah.
I'm going back to Mexico, and I will probably stay there because of that, because of the community of people I have there.
Yeah.
So, but could
So
be a while.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, it could be a while before they open up the airlines. I haven't heard anybody open anything up yet, so.
Right. So Troy has a question for you, and he's wondering what they think of Trump in Peru.
Not much. They are taking advice from, and this is from the president's mouth, they're taking advice from, I'm not sure if is it South Korea? One of the Koreas, and China. That's who they're taking advice from for this whole thing, which is not a good sign, but because they're communist countries. But somebody had asked about Trump, and he went on this big long talk and never answered the question at all. So I don't think he likes him. But I don't really know why. I don't know the history of why. So, and I had the people, I don't know. The idea they have of Trump is going to be completely skewed, and just like whatever idea they had of Barack Obama or Bush or, you know, any past president, it's going to be skewed because it's a different culture. Just like I'm from Canada, our attitude on Americans is different than Americans' attitudes of Americans, right? So, yeah. That was a long answer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just fine. Scott has a comment here, and I thought I'll bring it up since you're from Canada originally, and saying that Canada's government is showing its love for tyranny too, talking about not rushing to get people working, wanting to charge people for spreading what the government calls false information. That's very strange, but strange. What do you say?
It's one of the reasons I left Canada was because we used to call it the nanny state. It was like the nanny-ish and looking after people and getting in people's nose and business has been alive and well in Canada for a long time. And that prime minister is, he's he talked the other day about staying in some sort of quarantine the other day for 18 months.
Ooh.
I mean, that just blows my mind. We're going to just keep everyone home for 18 months. And they are giving people, I think, $2,000 a month or something like that. I don't know if they're going to start that, but Canada at least has the infrastructure. They could start that the day they approve it. It would be like instant because they've already got that infrastructure set up. But if they do that, that means people are like, so what? I get a couple grand a month, every month. I'll just stay at home. I mean that's going to be the attitude because there's going to be a lot less. And I think they're being pretty aggressive on making sure they help people. But I don't know. I haven't followed it enough. But yeah, he looks like he's gonna stick that out until people revolt. And I don't know. Canadians kind of put up with a lot of stuff. We're not really a revolting kind of a people. We're just like, whatever.
Not like the Americans.
Not like the Americans.
No, it's very different. I mean, we speak the same language and we look the same, but really there's a few cultural differences, and that's one of them. We're just like, whatever. And Canada's had socialized medicine and socialized unemployment and socialized healthcare for so long that they're just sort of used to. It's not such a big stretch to do this. Of course, if anybody could do some math, this is going to be a bad idea. But yeah, I don't know. And we don't have. People think they got medical freedom in Canada. We don't have medical freedom. In my list of 10 things why I left Canada, one of them was because as a single person with no children, no spouse, and I had my next of kin being my dad, but I don't. So because I don't have a spouse or children, if the government wants to take over my life, they could, like for medical reasons, they could take custody of me and make me a ward of the state and make my medical decisions for me. That existed 10 years ago. For anyone, so that affected 13% of the population who didn't have children or a spouse. That's pretty scary. I mean, can you imagine what they're going to do now? And so they'll just write laws like every other place to let them do that. And I don't know what that'll mean, but it'll probably, I would suspect, I've heard some countries talking about, and that's a law they put in here last week. If somebody is sick or at risk here, they can come to their home and take them away. And because there was, like, that's just, can you imagine you're sick and they take you away from your home and stick you in a hospital and you don't want to be there? That's just scary, because that's going to get abused if somebody doesn't like some family. Well, you can see where the abuse of that is going to get. And it makes me think of the stories I used to hear about, going on the trains during World War II. Never came back again. That's kind of makes me think of that. Anyways, I can see Canada doing that, and of course that'll look much better initially because they'll probably put you in a care facility or something, but that could go just so wrong. That really could go just so wrong.
Yeah, I think we all value our freedom to decide what we want to do with our own lives, because each of us we're individual people, and we should have the right to decide what's actually happening to us, as far as if we're not obviously a danger to someone or breaking the law for real.
Yeah, for real. That's the difference. I mean,
yeah,
that's the common sense rule, and it's not always what's showing up now. I think some common sense has gone out the window on lots of things right now.
Sounds like it. So Luke has a comment as well, and he's saying, all is relatively under control over here. He's in Brazil, by the way. Worries me that we're going into winter on the South Hemisphere. Thoughts?
I haven't looked enough into. I know I've heard some chitter chatter about hotter weather being better for this virus. It's better for the flu, but every virus is different, right? So I don't know. Probably the biggest difference, if you're in a country that's poor, is once it gets cold, if you're not healthy, the cold weather isn't as good for you. So you'd probably maybe be at risk of being a little bit sicker. So that might make a few more people sick. But it would probably make a few more people sick anyways. I don't know. I think the poor are the ones who get affected the most because they're in a poor state of health to begin with.
It seems like the world is going a little bit crazy on massive scale. There's just some chat going on here about posting things on Discord and people being deleted by Discord themselves, and whole channels being deleted for, talking about the coronavirus and what's going on, or, what someone might think is false information.
Oh, the censorship is unbelievable right now. Stuff is going off Facebook in minutes. I'm in a group that started after this for people who are kind of in agreement that this is all crazy, and to share information for people who aren't sure. So there's a lot of posting going on, and there's a lot of like, even for me, I'm like a total conspiracy theorist, and even for me, it's pretty out there. But you know, there's a whole ton of information that's legit, and they're just going down like flies. Like it's unbelievable. I don't know if you've heard of, do you know who David Icke is?
No.
Okay, so he's been a big conspiracy theorist for like 30 years. He's started out kind of as a researcher, and that was sort of the direction he took, following a lot of politics and health over the years. And I mean, this is what he does for a living, right? He's a big speaker. He's done public speaking for many years, and you know, fills up big stadiums. He's done tours and stuff. And he's a British guy. Anyway, so he's a big guy, but he's, you know, a big guy in this, you know, conspiracy theory field, right? Not mainstream. Well, London Real, which is a program I think in Britain. I'd heard of it, but I don't know it that much. He's had different kinds of people on for many, many years, like all kinds of subjects in every area imaginable. Anyways, he'd had David Icke on the week before, and it went really well. So he had him on again. He was going to have him for a longer interview, speaking a little bit more about some of the more out there stuff related to this topic. So they had the second highest live YouTube in the history, and YouTube had it shut down in about an hour. Then they took London Real's channel, who was on Vimeo, a lot of their materials on Vimeo, because they sell a lot of video material. They closed their account, and then they closed David Icke's account. David Icke had a Vimeo account with a lot of the material he's made over the years and some of the purchase packages and some of the paid stuff. Shut it down. The amount of, and there's a ton of other people that I don't watch quite as often, that stuff's been pulled down. They've been pulling channels down, pulling their posts from Facebook, closing Facebook. The censorship now has like ramped up like huge, unbelievable. And it's not like, oh, it's just some little wacko dudes. No. Some of these guys, yes, they might, if you've never heard this material and you watch some of their videos, you're like, well, that's kind of out there. But if you've been following along, then you realize there's people starving. There's people who lost their jobs. I mean, if you don't know that, well, maybe you know they lost their jobs, but you know, they don't know that they're pulling people off the highway, or just a second.
Wait. Maybe she got the Bart's cough. Should I get a glass of water? So there's a little bit of.
Okay.
Sorry
about that. I'm back.
Sorry, you back. Sorry, I had to mute it.
Yeah, the censorship is unbelievable. The censorship is unbelievable. And of course, they're not your topics. You don't know them, but there's a lot going on. Even people's comments, like on a Facebook post or something.
I pressed the wrong button there. I was going to press the microphone. So while she's probably having a drink or something, so we just have a look at some of the other comments. So apparently David Icke is a former professional footballer who has rebranded as a conspiracy theorist. He's not, unfortunately, a reliable, discerning consumer of incoming ideas, okay? Apparently there was a David Icke interview. Brian Rose of London Real got banned from LinkedIn too. This is obviously concerning. And Necro says that a lot of carnivores turn into conspiracy types the moment they understand Ansel Keys' lies. They fall down the rabbit hole after that. I know, I've watched it multiple times on Discord. Yes. So, obviously the more you read, the more you realize, the more you're going to be suspicious about things and not just trust anyone. So that's usually how it works. Yes, dry throat from hell. So let's see if Thora wants to speak again. If she managed to get some water.
Yeah, I did get some water. You know what it is? I hardly talk anymore. I've hardly talked for a month. There's nobody to hear the time because I'm alone here. So
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, yeah, I got some coffee here and feel
Good.
okay.
Good.
You know what it is? I inhaled like just a tiny little bit of spit. Of course,
no
you're not
worries.
supposed to breathe your liquid.
No worries.
No. No COVID here.
Preferably not.
Preferably not.
Then you would be
Then you would be
Then you would be taken away to a hospital against your will, and I don't know what happens after that. How long you? It's like a hospital jail, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard what's happened with that. I haven't heard an update from the president since I heard about that law. So we'll have to see what that turns into. I think that may be some pushback depending on who they're trying to take out of homes. Because people are used to looking after their own people here. Like people live in multi-generational homes. People don't usually die in hospital. They die at home. If you're sick, even if you're like chronically ill, you don't live in a hospital or a care home. You live at home, and you've got children and grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and a whole bunch of different people with various skill levels to look after you. You don't really need to be in a hospital because you've got 10 staff in the same property. So, like, there's 2 elderly folks that live here, and they're getting cared for by their family. I mean, they used to hang out in this one little spot, but it was where all the people would walk. So they just moved them off to the side so that they're not like directly in front of people all day long. People aren't staying away from them, but it's like they're not walking by them every minute of the day. But they're in the same building and or the same property, and
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna mute you for a second. See if we have anything else that we want to talk about. So next it says opinions of Icke notwithstanding, censorship is never the correct response to disagreeable ideas. So I think for me, I think it's kind of a worry that the coronavirus, the outbreak, and what the crazy things people are doing now when they're starting censoring things, that we're going to continue doing that. What do you think?
oh yeah, the censorship's going. It's gonna if it doesn't get stopped somehow, it's gonna get a lot worse. Well, some countries are making it a crime to say certain things about coronavirus. I think it's somewhere in Europe. Just made a law a couple of days ago. I think that you're not allowed to disagree about 5G. You cannot speak or write about anything controversial about 5G. If you don't love it, you're going to jail, which is like ridiculous. And that's a free speech thing. It's not like, if you don't like aspirin, why should you not be able to say, I don't like aspirin and here's the 10 reasons why?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Same thing, even if it's like, I don't like Trump, or I don't like Trudeau, or I don't like, Bill Gates, or, anything. I don't like my neighbor. You should be able to say that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And do you think that it's going to get a lot worse now after, when people are getting used to being censored about certain things, are they going to start accepting it? What do you think? Well, I'm just curious to hear what you think.
Well, one of the things that's actually starting to happen is some of the alternative video, for example, video platforms. Some of the big people are starting to move over there, like BitChute, or I don't know what some of the other ones are. Library is another one. There's a couple more. So there are some competitors of, for example, YouTube, that are functional. You know, like they're actually up and running to a level that they can handle the traffic. So you're going to have a lot of those people who are first censored move over there, and the more that go over there, the more those become more popular. As far as Facebook, there's a few other things besides Facebook. Nothing like Facebook quite, but there's a few others that are, like the group that I'm in has an account on another platform that this group that I'm in that's dealing with discussion about all this controversy about COVID. They know they're gonna get, that channel's going to go down. They're already censoring stuff like throughout the day, like 25% of the posts get deleted. Comments, like if you put a comment in a post, lots of those are getting deleted. The host of the show, or the host of the page, she's had some censorship stuff happen. Her account almost went down. Like she would go to her Facebook personal account page and there was like no content. There was just her banner and the side stuff. So they pulled all the content from her profile. Wow. They did put it back. Wow. I'm not really sure why they put it back. So we know this channel's going down. So she started another group on another platform that if it goes down, we'll just move over there. And there's already some people on Mercola. I don't know if you're familiar with Mercola. He's like an alternative health guy who's been doing alternative health stuff for 20 years. And his whole medical career has been in the alternative health field. And he was censored off of Pinterest, Facebook, I think YouTube. I'm not sure about YouTube. Several years ago. So he's been, you know, in alternative channels, different social media things. His wife is really big on another platform, and she's, you know, built a pretty big following on this completely other platform like Facebook. And so, you know, there's some of that going on, and the more and more that get censored, they're going to start going over to these other channels. There's also starting to be, and one of the things I've followed for a couple of years, is there's a big, huge alternative health movement that is independent of normal marketing channels, because most of them have been censored off of, or a lot of them have been censored off of Google, so they're not getting any Google traffic anymore. You know, they have limited success on YouTube because they, you know, mess with the algorithm, so they don't get much search traffic on YouTube. But they've started kind of collaborating, and they collaborate with their mailing lists as well. So like, that's why, I don't know if you've seen any of those health summits that have been quite popular for the last couple of years. So you might have like 10 videos or 10 days with 20 speakers, and you can listen to them all and watch them all for free. Well, so those people are collaborating on their emailing list. So one person might have 10,000, another person might have 40,000. So all of a sudden you've got 1 million people on your mailing list for your summit, and you have a potential of getting most of those email addresses, just the way that these summits are set up. So it's like people are building their own following independent of relying on search traffic. And that's getting stronger and stronger. And that's going to be, I think, a big power thing, because you can censor all you like. These people are still sharing their own material with their own list, the email list that they own. So.
Yeah, that's just like putting the lid on a little bit.
Putting the
not actually eliminating it, just slowing it down, flattening the curve.
Right.
Flattening the curve.
Right. And I'm not sure. Yeah. And
sorry.
If somebody really knows how to write and knows the words to avoid, you can write and not get censored. So. So then you start to be able to attract some more mainstream people, just because you're like really, really, really good about not putting any bad words in there. Well, then all of a sudden you've got this list of people that's maybe a bit more mainstream, but then you become part of a summit, and all of these people who are very mainstream, here's some alternative ideas, and some of them are going to click with them. And so then you start getting more and more people interested in alternative health or alternative thoughts, well, probably mostly alternative health. It's really been big in the alternative health. So that's going to be I think more of the future. And with this big this big censorship stuff, you're going to have like kind of this movement of people away from Facebook and Google and YouTube. And the people who want to be successful, they'll figure it out and share it with, what works with other people.
Yeah.
Right, so we have another question. I think this was with regards to shutting down opinions about 5G. So Helmet Blister says what she said doesn't sound right. Where? So where did they not allow you to have opinions about 5G? I think that's the question.
Yeah,
I think it was, let me just do a Google search for not a Google search, a search for it. I think it was England, but I know that's not the right word for England anymore.
Yes, Troy.
Okay. I don't know. It's not showing up in my search. It'd take me a few minutes to find it, but that's something that just happened in the last week.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's hard to find 5G stuff on Facebook and Google because they're actively censoring those ones right now, more than COVID. I don't really know why. I mean, you could jump down a rabbit hole for that one. But so if they hear some more, if people hear about it more, and read it, and you'll find out what is the rule and what's the law. I see that
So
comment from Gung Fu.
Yeah, I'll just read that one out loud. Brian Rose, London Real, is not going to back down. He's going to fight for freedom of speech, even for those he does not agree with, which he did say in the beginning of the interview. And that is a very admirable thing to do, I think, because that's what we need, freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and he's gotten he was really shocked that all this happened. I mean, he wanted the controversy, that's kind of what he does for some of his interviews, but I think he was shocked at the reaction, censorship reaction. I think really took him by surprise. Because he's not technically a conspiracy theorist. He's had all kinds of different people on his show, vegans, vegetarians, and carnivores, and different gurus and politicians and business people, and just a huge range of stuff. But he himself isn't really, he's not one of these people instigating these ideas. He's like wants to share and communicate. I mean, he's obviously for free speech because that's almost the topic of his channel. Let's investigate different ideas. So they ticked off the wrong guy when they censored him, because he's been on, I've seen a couple of videos where he said, no, I'm not putting up with this. Well, that's great.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna mute you. I removed you. Yeah, so that's probably it's probably a good thing that they pissed him off, because he's going to be fighting even more to get it out there, and he's going to find a way, because he's like a little pit bull.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Right. So we have another comment here from Nexi to Scott Hunt. The censorship coming from YouTube itself makes me wonder whose interests are jeopardized by open discourse. Why these topics specifically? Any comments on that?
I'm not sure if we can really know the why. I think there's lots of people speculating, and some of them are probably right, but the wrong, I know it may sound strange. We don't have enough information to know why right now. Like all this weird stuff that's going on. We can't answer why before coming up with a solution. We need to recognize that this stuff is happening, understand that it's wrong, or whatever parts are wrong, and stop it. Whatever parts a person thinks is wrong, or a country or a community or a group or whatever. Because we're not going to be able to figure out why until they'll spend the next 100 years doing research on this time in history. And people will have a teeny tiny inkling. Like look at some of the history. I was looking up some of the people who did like Pol Pot and Mao and some of those people who starved some of their people. And I had looked up Pol Pot. There were 3 people who have survived his stuff that have come forward to speak. And that was decades ago. So they still know almost nothing. They only have a range of knowing how many people died, like I think it was between 2 million and 5 million, something like that. But they'd have no concrete numbers. So even though I probably know some of the whys, I don't have enough, nobody has enough information to know why. But they have to recognize that it's happening.
Yeah.
And if censorship is happening, then it's wrong. Then we have to deal with that. How we deal with that? Well, I don't know. But I mean, like I talked about some of the things that people who are being censored are doing. Some of them are getting very vocal. Some of them are just moving to new channels. Some of them are getting new ways of marketing that don't involve the censorship people.
Right. So I think, yeah, so that's just another comment from going through there about messing with the wrong guy, which I think is probably true. And I think all the questions with regards to Peru, which was actually the main topic here today, have been dealt with. Unless you have something, then I would urge you to post that very quickly. Otherwise, I think this video is probably going to be demonetized because now we're talking about 5G. So we shall see what YouTube says about that. And Patricia says that she is right. Fighting in on principle is the most effective way. It doesn't matter who's censoring or why ultimately. Yeah, I totally agree there. So Thora, do you have any final words you want to share with people, thoughts about the whole situation going on, or anything that you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think I covered as much about Peru and tried to not get too off in weird land for my first time. So encourage people necessarily believe everything they hear or see. Might be some other side of the story or half information.
I think those are very wise words. That is very often the case. We hear one thing and we tend to want to believe that straight away, but maybe there is another side to the story, even if it comes from TV or wherever it comes from. And especially if they start removing comments from normal people that just aren't getting paid from the government, for example.
Right, because then you don't get to know. If there was 100 comments and they were legit comments, you'd be able to say, oh, well, only 3 people thought this was a bad idea and 97 thought it was okay. Well, that tells a different story than if it was the other way around. Or a comment might bring in a tiny bit of detail that, oh, that's kind of important to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Just my opinion here, but I think you did pretty well for being your first time on camera, and I just want to thank you so much for actually coming on and sharing this. And I think people found it interesting, and it's good to show that side of things as well, especially since people are now starting to realize that maybe this isn't the best solution. And we see protests, especially in America, going on about this, and hopefully just by sharing this and getting more people to be aware of what's going on behind the scenes, maybe we will progress things quicker. Just maybe.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. And I'm a total extrovert, so I knew I'd only be nervous for about 5 minutes. That's what happened.
Right, I'm going to mute you again. Everyone will hear me on your speakers. So again, I just want to say thank you so much, and I'm going to actually end this stream right now, and I haven't seen any more questions, but you'll probably be able to keep chatting if you guys want to do that. So I just want to thank you so much for being here as usual, and I will see you again very soon. If you haven't noticed this yet, I have just rebranded this channel into Keto Carnivore Perspectives, and I have created a new channel for all my sugar related stuff. So I'm going to be moving my sugar related videos over there to keep it separate and on topic. So if you haven't subscribed to that channel yet, just go and do that. You can find the link on my on the banner of the channel. You have a link there, but otherwise just search for the sugar channel. I have it prepared, and if you search for that, you will get there, and there is not much on there yet because I haven't had time to do that. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you again next week. Bye.